Hi, Christian. Nice to meet you, or nice to see
Hi,
you
Alan.
again.
Good to see you again as well. How are you doing?
Good, good, good. Thank you. How about you?
All good. All good. All good. Back in Germany right now.
All right, awesome. So, ClimateKIC, that's a really impressive organization. Lots going on. Very, very active organization. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you guys do,
Sure, for
and
sure.
a bit about what's unique?
Sure. So ClimateKIC is Europe's leading climate innovation agency. We have been active for 15 years to drive systemic change and climate innovations in cities, in governments, and in regions. We have around 200 people really working across Europe and different industries and sectors. We want to help Europe to become climate friendly and net zero, of course, and also prepare to any potential crisis coming up. And then on the other side, and that's where we more focus on, is really climate entrepreneurship, which we want to drive and support around the world. So in different continents like Latin America, Africa, Europe, and Asia, we're helping local organizations, incubators, accelerators, and so on, so that they create, design climate-specific innovation programs, climate-specific incubators, or climate-specific accelerators. And I think we are per year supporting around 40 to 50 climate incubators, which we call climate launchpads. And we're supporting around 20 to 30, maybe more this year, climate accelerators, really climate-focused accelerators. So that's probably rather different because we are behind many of these partners. We're trying to give them expertise, resources, and contents so that they can really not just design, but also successfully run these programs throughout the whole year, let's say, in different geographies and different industries and sectors.
That's amazing. So, how many startups do you think you interact with per year
So
through
I
like
would say
network?
across these programs, probably like 500 startups in the acceleration space and probably more than 500 startups also or ideators in the incubation space. Again, very different industries, very different geographies. I would say the majority of the split is between Latin America and Europe, and then we have quite some also active across Africa and Asia.
All right. And then, in order to get to that 1,000 startups that you work with, how many do you think apply?
That's a good question, and I think we on some of the programs we have 50 to 100 applications. On some of the programs we do have 200 to 300 applications also. So it differs very much also because we do work with local partners. They're the owners of the programs. It depends on their market, let's say, on the industry, on the geography, whether there are more climate innovations or not. So we're really dependent also on how advanced are the markets in those areas. But I think with them doing the promotion, with us doing the promotion, using local networks, we can really drive up these applications. And I think we've seen, across the board. I think in some of the programs we had more than 300 applications, even, but usually we have around 100 to 200 really submitted applications coming in, depending on the program.
Wow, that's a lot per in total in aggregates.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about that, the application process. How do you suggest or how do you run your selection process in order to pick the best candidates for your mission?
Yeah. So I think our mission really focuses on driving systemic change and climate to fight climate change. We try to do it through mitigation, meaning we want to select the best startups who have a strong mitigation potential to save or avoid emissions, CO2 or equivalent emissions. So that could be the focus, or the other focus is also how many benefits, we call them, do they create an adaptation resilience space? Like how much can they prepare different lands or different cities and so on to become more resilient? There are specific indicators as well. So I think we really need to balance these climate indicators and criteria with the business potential, of course, and with the kind of management and founders and a team also, like strength and potential. So we have to balance these out. We're looking at gender, equity, and diversion also as a selection criteria in the application process. So we have between 3 to 4 criteria. And business potential is not the only criteria. It's not the main one, but it has a strong weight, and also the climate one has usually a strong weight. So we really try to look at both perspectives. The local partner usually looks more at the business side and the team side, while we try to look more on the climate side or even the gender diversity side, and try to evaluate these throughout the offline evaluations or even interviews and online evaluations and such.
Gotcha. So in the context of where you're trying to drive impact from a climate perspective, Obviously, you're not first focused on the financial benefits that this company has. However, they have to be sustainable. They have to survive, and the more they grow, the larger their climate impact might be.
Totally.
So, how do you deal with those two at times opposed type of forces, and how do you make decisions in which one matters more, and how do you combine those two type of approach?
Yeah. So there's always conflicts, of course, between the business side and the impact side, let's say. But if we look across our programs, I think the majority of the weight is on the business side, the team also, and the program fit as well, and the status and of the company. So that's still the majority of the weight, let's say. Also, some of the programs may do a due diligence and a financial review in more detail. Some don't. So I think there's still more weight on these criteria than on our kind of climate and gender diversity impact criteria. But we want to position them as still more than 1/3 of the selection criteria to be really focused on climate impact and gender actions also. But yeah, there are conflicts and discussions in the selection committees also always around it, where we need to understand, okay, there are statistics nowadays also which say that if you're driving certain amount of impact, that your business success may be greater also in the future. So we need to consider this. But also, we're not the only ones evaluating, right? We may invite investors, we may invite corporate representatives to also be part of the jury and be part of the evaluators to get their point of view as well. So also depending on whom do you invite to your selection committee and your review, there might be a little bit more weight on a certain topic or on a certain criteria. But of course, we want to listen also to them and how they can scale up how they think they can scale up the businesses financially. And so that's an important aspect. But yeah, we want to position the impact more and more in there, as we see that statistics are showing that impact businesses are becoming more and more successful.
Cool. And you said you bring in a lot of different people externally as evaluator. What do you think the benefits have been so far of doing that?
So it's always important to bring in external evaluators. They know more sometimes about the business or impact world than the program coordinators themselves. Maybe speaking about myself, but not all the program coordinators have a deep business experience or a financial investment experience, right? So let's bring in these people who really have a lot of expertise. Could be investors, could be corporate representatives working on open innovation, could be also impact experts, right? We bring in climate impact advisors and so on. We bring in, ones focusing on mitigation or adaptation resilience. So let's bring them in, let's get their perspectives. Because even myself, I've been an entrepreneur, okay, but I've been mostly focused on coordinating these programs. So I may not be the most expert on recent business trends and industries and sectors, especially not everywhere in the world. So let's really bring in local experts also to help you with the evaluations. I think it makes a lot of sense. It gives a bit of work, but you can generate very interesting insights from their reviews, and they may know better what do the startups need and what's the fit with your potential program.
Yeah. Has there been any partnership after that? So either from the startups and the external, or the external party wanted to be more involved at the outcome of that evaluation?
Definitely. So usually investors join in the selection process, but also they want to join throughout the execution of their programs. They might want to be general mentors, or they want to be frequently updated about the pipeline of the startups, for example. Similar to the corporate open innovation representatives, they may join in throughout the program to mentor the startup, to understand whether potential pilots make sense, or again, they want to be part of different filters or the demo day. So usually there's a lot of potential for collaboration. We try to really implement this also. Yeah. And then what we can see is that the startups, of course, if they see a good fit, also they want to talk more to these, and they would require them to become mentors in a way. So it usually makes a lot of sense, and we do it in most of the programs. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Thanks. So wrapping this up with one last question. So for incubators and accelerators and organizations across the world that are selecting startups and working with them that don't necessarily have a climate focus, but do want to consider that more and more as part of their selection process and as part of their activities, their value, providing activities, what would you recommend? What are your suggestions to start thinking about this, both in terms of selection process as well as the value that they add to the startup?
I think you may start slowly with this whole world, right? Because not everyone knows about climate impact, systemic impact, and so on. So I think let's start slowly. Let's start asking these applicants a few questions on how they're addressing impact, how they're addressing sustainability, how they're addressing climate change, right? Let's start just with general open questions first. So you can also learn from this and how they respond, what scoring you can utilize. And then I think maybe in the same iteration or in the next programs, right, let's start deep diving more on to see whether they have specific impact indicators, social side, climate side, right? Let's start asking them also for these indicators. Let's start asking them on how they calculated these, what are the sources behind these indicators, right? So you can really maybe throughout the program or in the next kind of application phases also, like, let's ask them more questions so you can learn from it. You can understand how you score them and how your externals also score them, right? So let's go step by step. And if you have any questions, happy to help you also on how we do it a little bit more. But I think there's a bit of expertise needed. So let's really take it step by step and build this expertise internally or within your evaluators and jury members.
That's nice. I think even sometimes asking the questions helps the startup reflect on what is it that they could do, have an impact there.
Totally, which they may not think about beforehand, but maybe they realize it back then, or maybe they realize that they don't have that impact and they're challenged themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Christian. It's great to learn about this, and we'll definitely share a little bit more content also in a more written format. So I really appreciate your time, and see you soon.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah, sure. Welcome.